What is up? Come on in. Welcome to Couz's Corner Happy Hour. This is a live edition of Couz's Corner. Make yourself comfortable, belly yourself up to the bar, and let me pour you out a shot of top shelf college football content. Live edition. Thank you for coming in. Wanted to give a shout out to those who are already in the house. Luke, Timothy Green, Quentin, already in the comments. I appreciate it. Don't forget, whether you're watching this live or watching it on the replay, the likes, the comments, the subscriptions, all that still helps. Either way, a lot to talk about in tonight's show. My original topic of the show, which I'm still going to get to, is basically the disrespect that this West Virginia football team is getting by some outlets in the preseason. We are going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the news that came out today. I'd already planned this video, this live stream, and then the news comes out about Missouri losing their athletic director and the somewhat of a rumor, I guess you could call it a report, rumor, whatever, that Wren Baker may be the top candidate to replace her. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll just talk about what's going on in the world of college football. But obviously, you can steer the direction or steer the conversation in whatever direction you like. All you have to do is drop me a super chat, hit the $ near the chat box where it says say something. I'll be sure to hit to read your question, your comment, put it on the screen. It'll highlight it for me so I see it. And it's a way you can support with my work here and support the show. So let's dig in. I have been busy today. I had to work today, and I had to work today, for lack of a better term. But anyway, so let's dig in. All right. I want to talk about two different media outlets that have West Virginia listed in the bottom half of the Big 12 for 2024. The first one, I'm going to play you a clip. This is Josh Pate from Late Kick with Josh Pate. I'm sure most of you know that show. It's one of the largest college football shows on YouTube. A very popular show. I think he's affiliated with 24/7 Sports and CBS. But now his criteria is a little different than the one I'm going to show you later. And his criteria for Josh's was this. He looked at program rankings. He went 3 years back and looked at the program and how they're progressing. He obviously looked at their recruiting, their player retention, their coaching, the whole bit, and obviously what they did last year and just how they're progressing. So he didn't look at it in a vacuum, just this specific team. He was looking at the program as a whole. But let's hear what he had to say about West Virginia. I will share that with you real quick.
West Virginia, we put at number 11, 9-4 last year. After two losing seasons, they are a classic team versus program argument. So last year's team gives you hope, but you got to take into account the last 3 years. This year will tell the tale, I think, ultimately on Neil Brown and the overall direction of the program. Talent's been okay. Talent acquisition okay by Big 12 standards, mediocre by national standards. And then the bottom tier here, we got.
So he had West Virginia basically in tier 3, the bottom of tier 3 in the Big 12 out of 4 tiers. At least he didn't put West Virginia in the 4th tier. I guess if there's a silver lining, that's it, right? They're not in tier 4. But he did have them in tier 3. And he said there he wants to see it over a period of time. He doesn't want it to be just a one-year deal. You know, he did say Neil Brown and the team did well last year. He wants to continue to see it. And based on their recruiting and where they've been, and I'll be honest with you, when I first saw this ranking or somebody sent me a screenshot of it, I was pissed. I was like, man, there's no way we're 11th. But when I heard his criteria, I actually didn't have an issue with it because he's right. West Virginia needs to do this over a longer period of time. They are recruiting. When you look at the rankings, the numbers, and I know a lot of people don't like looking at recruiting numbers, but I do think it matters. If you look at over time, the teams with the highest rated recruits typically have the best teams. Typically, not always. Texas has proved us wrong on that many times. However, what I will say is if you look at the program as a whole and where it's at and where it's going, he probably had West Virginia right now. What I do think is when he does this next year, West Virginia will be much higher on his list because I think they're going to have a pretty good 2024. I have pretty high expectations for this team. I think they'll at least continue on the path they're on. Win 8, 9, maybe even 10 games in 2024, and then he'll move them up because he'll see, hey, this wasn't just a fluke. 2023 wasn't a fluke. This program is definitely trending in the right direction. And I tell you what, I think hiring of Drew Fabianich, the general manager, who's helping them evaluate talent. I think that was a huge move in that direction. So I think we have an upper hand on a lot of programs with bringing him on board. Now, the other one, and I'm actually going to, I didn't intend to do it this way, but it was the easiest way for me to access the article. This one is a little different. Now, this one I take a little bit of issue with. This one was in College Football Network. I actually wrote an article about this on my own website over at couzescorner.com. I'm going to share it on the screen with you. But as you'll see, shameless plug here a little bit, but it says CFB Network says WVU football will finish 11th in Big 12. So they had them 11th also. And here's the criteria. I'll just read it to you. It says, after being picked to finish dead last in the Big 12 by the conference's media members ahead of the 2023 season, the West Virginia Mountaineers finished the regular season 8-4 and tied for fourth place in the league. With several key pieces returning in 2024, including starting quarterback Garrett Green, one would expect the Mountaineers to be picked as a team who will likely finish in the top half of the league, if not near the top. Well, for one writer, that's not the case. Owen Jones of College Football Network, who I had not heard of until somebody sent me this, by the way, recently released his Big 12 power rankings for 2024 and had WVU football at number 11. See Jones's analysis below. Here's what he says. The West Virginia Mountaineers had a great season in 2023, finishing 9-4, but they need to back the season up and prove they weren't a one-season wonder in 2024. The 2024 schedule is much tougher, with the game against Penn State a standout. However, their rushing mentality, which starts with quarterback Garrett Green, is enough to grind any team down. So he goes on to talk about the positives about the running game and Garrett Green, but yet he still has West Virginia at 11th. He has TCU ahead of West Virginia, UCF, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Kansas State, Colorado at 5. Now, that one there I have issue with. Kansas at 4, Oklahoma State at 3, Utah at 2, Arizona at 1. And then he has Arizona State 12, BYU 13, Baylor 14, Cincinnati 15, and Houston at 16. Says Jones is the second member of the college football media to put West Virginia as the number 11 team in their Big 12 power rankings for 2024. Then I talked about Josh Pate. Basically, he talked about him having different criteria. Then I went on to talk about FanDuel also released their over-under win totals for 24, and I did a video on this a few days ago, rather, and had the Mountaineers at only 6.5 wins. It's apparent that not every member of the college football media is completely sold on WVU and Neil Brown after their 9-4 season and bowl win in 2023. It'll be interesting to see where the Big 12 voters place WVU in their preseason rankings, which should come out this summer. Based on the rankings by these three outlets that I mentioned, it's probably safe to assume the Big 12 media won't place the Mountaineers much higher. If that is the case, it could give Neil Brown and company their rallying cry and motivation for 2024, just like being picked 14th did in 2023. So I actually I could get mad and jump up and down about it, but I actually think as a fan of the team, I actually think it's a good thing that they have West Virginia ranked lower because it gives the team motivation. Absolutely gives them motivation. And I think that's a good thing that the team can use going forward, just like they did the 14th mantra in 2023. So, So Josh Pate's list, I didn't have an issue with. I did take issue with the one from College Football Network. I thought 11th was way too low. I feel like West Virginia should be at least top half of the conference, at least top 8, if not top 5. Honestly, I think you can make an argument they could be top 5. But also, I could also see an argument that they're not top 5, that they're more like 7, 8, somewhere in that range. But at least they should be top half of the conference, in my opinion. Yeah, you're right. WVU football going deep. You're exactly right. It was a very, very short summary, not really an analysis. It's what Neil Brown, I guess, would like to call lazy reporting. But again, as someone who writes and reports myself sometimes, I don't want to bash somebody else's work. It is hard to know a lot about every single team. That's why that's why you don't see me covering a whole lot of teams a whole lot, because I just don't feel like I can do it justice. It's because I just don't have the knowledge to do that, and I don't think it'd be fair to the fans of those teams and to my viewers if I try to get on there and analyze a team in detail when I don't know much about them. I can give my opinion and go into a little bit of detail, but not a deep dive. Tyler, I'm actually going to talk about that later in the show. I forgot to mention that West Virginia picked up a big transfer commitment today from Northwestern. Actually, I think WVU Football Going Deep has already done an episode on it over on his channel. I recommend you all go check out. And I will talk about that in a minute. And by the way, Jeff Ruff, thank you for tuning in on X. I always forget to advertise this, but for those of you who might be watching on X, whether it be live or on the replay, please go check out my other work over at my YouTube channel at Couz's Corner. You can find all of my past live streams and all of my pre-recorded videos over there at Couz's Corner on YouTube. Jeff says all these hacks wait on someone's rankings and then pile on. A lot of that's Jeff. I think you're right. I think they just copy and paste a lot of this. They'll move a few teams around. Then the rest of them are just copied and pasted in some cases. I like to try to do my own based on my own analysis just because I try not to be lazy, basically. So anyway, now let's talk about the Wren Baker story. Actually, before we get to that, I want to see what you guys have to say in the comments about the disrespect here. Let's I don't want to jump around. I don't want to move ahead too fast. I want to make sure I show you guys some love in the chat. Again, I got a lot of people in here tonight. This looks like it's going to be a pretty busy one tonight. If you guys want to, I'm going to try to get to as many chats as I can. But again, if you want to make sure I see it, drop a super chat near the chat box. Drop me a small donation and it'll highlight it. And it supports my show. Let me get up to the top here. Luke says, what? No way, Wren Baker's already gone. He's not gone yet. He says, damn it, Couz, now I'm going to have to neglect my very rare and limited video game time. He's not gone yet. Notice I put a question mark. I might need to change that title. I don't mean for it to be clickbaitish. Wasn't my intent. I was trying to figure out a way to keep the title short, but yet still fit that in there, and that was the only way I could figure it out. But I may change it because I don't want to be clickbait. He's not gone yet. He's just a candidate for the job. And I'll get to that in just a minute. What's up, Veritax? Thank you for catching it live, my man. And I will, WV Football Going Deep, I'll be sure to check my email later. To see, I haven't checked my email in a few hours, so I apologize. Browns and Beers, who's a VIP member here at Couz's Corner, says, I feel like by Pate standards, I understood the relative placement of WVU, but he was definitely heavy when it came to favoring certain factors that he considered. For example, Colorado above us is the worst. Browns and Beers, I caught that too. Very, very good observation. He wanted to talk about the last 3 years, yet he puts Colorado ahead of West Virginia. Colorado, they were 1-11 2 years ago. Last year, even with Coach Brown, they were 4-8. And he still put them ahead of West Virginia. So I think, again, may have been subconsciously that he did it, but I think it's the Coach Prime effect, man. Everybody is high on Colorado just because Coach Prime is there. I want to hold out and watch them play some games first and see how he and his staff do actually on game days. They have a lot of talent. They're going to have the Jimmies and Joes, especially at the skill positions. But can they make it work on game day? And can they shore up the line of scrimmage too? That's their defense and their offensive line. That's really where they struggled last year. But yeah, I thought he had Texas Tech way too high. He had Texas Tech at 4. Texas Tech has been an average football. Now, they've been making bowl games. So having them ranked ahead of West Virginia is not necessarily – I didn't have a problem with them being ranked ahead of West Virginia necessarily, but to have them ranked 4th, I thought was a little high on his list as well. I thought Texas Tech should have been somewhere closer to the middle of the league, 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there. Veritax says, who did we lose that we don't have people to replace, though? So far, not really anybody. I mean, they brought in several DBs out of the portal. We are losing a few DBs to graduation. We're losing Beanie Bishop. We're losing Malachi Ruffin. We lost, I think it was Hershey McLaurin to the transfer portal. We're losing Marcus Floyd to graduation. But they've brought in a lot of guys as well, including the one today, which I'll talk about in just a minute. He had Texas Tech first. I thought he had him 4th, but maybe I looked at it wrong. Let me look at it again here. He had Utah first, K-State 2nd, Oklahoma State 3rd, and Texas Tech 4th. But still, your point remains. He had him way too high. Tyler. The Eye Patch, welcome in. Thank you for joining the show. Ute fan and first time here. Greetings from Scottsdale. Thank you for joining the show, Eye Patch. Tonight's going to be a West Virginia heavy show. I'm hoping at the end we might be able to touch a little bit on the news about Florida State and maybe a little bit about the G5s and that kind of thing. but I wanted to get to the West Virginia content first for my West Virginia members and viewers. But feel free to stick around, and heck, who knows? You might learn a little bit about West Virginia as well in the process. And I apologize to you, the eye patch. I got into a little bit of a war on Twitter with a fellow Ute fan the other night who was being a troll, and I kind of called out the Ute fan base for the way they act. But obviously, I wasn't referring to everybody in the fan base, and I think most of the Utah fans realize that. But I still wanted to let you know that if you see that, it wasn't anything personal. I'm actually good acquaintances and friends with a few Utah fans, so not everybody's bad. WV Football Going Deep says, with the defensive addition today in Fabianich, I think 10 wins is now likely, not just maybe. I like the optimism there. Hello, Silas, and the rest of College Football Nation. All right. Yeah. Dan, who's also watching on X, thank you for tuning in, Dan. He says, good, let all the so-called experts keep picking against WVU. Absolutely. Absolutely. They can just use it for motivation. That's all they can do, man. Browns and Beers, another comment. Says, I'm not particularly worried about Wren leaving, but that being said, it would be about the worst time for him to leave. Absolutely. And I put that in the article I did today on my website. The timing would be terrible. He's right before we're getting ready to probably hire a basketball coach. Conference alignment's hot and heavy as always. The football team seems to be going in the positive direction. We don't want to see a setback there. Coach Brown, you mean Deion Sanders at Colorado? I'm not sure what I said there that you're referring to, but I probably did I may have made a misspeak there. I'm not sure. First tier, Tyler. I'm sorry. Yeah, he had Texas Tech in tier 1, definitely. All right. Let's talk about the next story, and that is the Wren Baker story. The AD at Missouri, and I don't want to get her name wrong, so let me look at it here real quick before I say it wrong, because I don't want to. It's not a normal name. Desiree Reed-Francois. Desiree Reed-Francois was the AD at Missouri, doing a very good job. Fan base loved her. She had that athletic department on the rise, doing very well. Obviously, we saw what the football team did last year, finishing in the top 10 in the country, making it to a New Year's Six bowl game. She's leaving. She's going to, of all places, Arizona, who's not only a Big 10 or Big 12 school going into 24, but it's also a school with a lot of financial problems. And it took a lot of people by surprise. Now, she does have a connection to Arizona. She actually got her doctorate from Arizona. So maybe it's not that big of a surprise that she would go back to a school where she has a connection. But the surprise is the fact that she would leave an SEC school, which is quote-unquote Power 2, to what seems like a downward move or a backwards move to a Tier 2 Power 5 or Power 4 in Arizona, especially one who's having financial trouble, right? Took a lot of people by surprise. And obviously, the first thing I thought of when I saw this today on X was, Wren Baker, because I knew Wren Baker had worked at Missouri in the past. And he does have a connection there now. I think he was only there for a couple of years. He was actually there at Missouri as the deputy AD when Mack Rhodes was the AD there. Now, Mack Rhodes ended up leaving to go to Baylor. And then after that, Wren ended up leaving to get an athletic director position at North Texas, which is what led him to West Virginia. So he does have a connection to Missouri. And then I see this on X an hour or two later. Power Mizzou, it's an account that covers Missouri. Put my Mizzou AD hotboard. 1, Wren Baker, West Virginia. If he says no, so he's saying, hey, you should make him say no. Then if he does, you reach out to Laird Veach, who is the AD at Memphis. Now, obviously, Power Mizzou, I think, went on to do a podcast episode and everything on the situation. I have yet to listen to that, so I don't know exactly where that's at. But I did have somebody reach out to me and tell me that earlier on Sportsline, which is where Tony Caridi hosted. All you West Virginia fans know Tony Caridi. He hosts a show every night called Sportsline. He said that he thinks it's extremely small chance, very, very small chance Wren Baker takes that job. He doesn't see Wren leaving for that job. Now, obviously, it's worrisome because you think that, SEC can probably pay more money. But it looks to me like there may be some issues at Missouri. From what I understand from reading some of their fan posts on Twitter, they have hired some kind of an advisory board to oversee the athletic department, to oversee. I don't know, but it looks like they have somebody looking over the AD shoulder basically all the time. And I just don't think that's a good idea. And I'm not sure any AD is going to want to walk into that situation. So that's the situation with Wren Baker that I wanted to talk about. Now, with the recruit that I wanted to talk about, Jaheim Joseph. Jaheim Joseph is a defensive back from Northwestern, 5 foot 10 inches tall. I think he weighs about 190 pounds. When you look at his stats, he had like 23, 24 tackles last year, had 3 interceptions, had a really good year at Northwestern last year. He's a grad transfer. Still has his redshirt year available, but obviously he probably doesn't intend to redshirt. I would imagine he intends to play. He has been in college since 2020. He enrolled, or it may even be 2019. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's been at Northwestern since 2019 or 2020, but he's only played 3 years. He played 2021, 2022, and 2023. So he does have, and he's a grad transfer. That's the reason he was able to enter the portal now and be picked up now. He actually entered the portal February the 9th, I believe it was. And the very next day, West Virginia reached out and made him an offer, and he's already accepted it. So didn't waste a lot of time. Sounds like West Virginia's a place he wants to be. And based on what I read up on this player, he played safety mostly at Northwestern, did play a few snaps, about 70 snaps or so at nickel corner, which lo and behold is exactly what Beanie Bishop did at Minnesota before he came to West Virginia. They had him playing nickel corner. He came to West Virginia where he thought they could give him an opportunity to play full-time outside corner and obviously play against better receivers and be able to showcase his skills a little more. So could we see a repeat of what Beanie Bishop – now, I'm not saying the guy's going to be a consensus All-American. I'm not going that far. But could we see Neil Brown and his staff bring a guy in who from the Big Ten, who's got experience, maybe was underutilized at his previous school, come in and make a star out of him? It looks like they might have found a niche here. Hopefully they did. And also, this young man hasn't committed yet, but he has a teammate who's a defensive back who's also in the portal. Let me look at his name real quick. It is Garnet Hollis. He's also a very good player. And I reached out to a contact of mine who's also a YouTube creator who follows the Big Ten very closely. His name's Big Ten Ted. Here's his analysis of Jaheim Joseph. It says, he's a solid Northwestern DB. Had his best year last year with 3 picks, I believe, and that's accurate. I looked it up. If he came back, probably would have been their best defensive back. Attacks the ball all around. Plays bigger than his size and run support, and aggressive playing the ball. Another one that got away from the Wildcats secondary. I asked him about Garnet Hollis. He said he's good too. They had a pretty solid secondary last year. Would be good pickups. That Penn State at West Virginia game is one to watch out for. So, I didn't have a chance to go back and watch any tape or watch any highlights to see if he played a lot of man defense or whether he played zone mostly. If anyone in the chat knows the answer to that, please feel free to let me know. I'd love to know whether he played man or whether he played zone mostly at Northwestern. I did not get a chance to watch any Northwestern games last year, so I'm not sure. But I did read that he played a lot of safety, and then he played some nickel corner as well about probably a third of the time. But we know that West Virginia is going to go to a true, at least what they're planning to do anyway, if the personnel holds up and is what they think it's going to be. They're going to go to a true 3-4 defense. I think they're trying to move away from the 4-2 type deal. They're going to have two outside linebackers, what they used to call bandits. They're going to have 2 of them on the field a lot of times. And when they take one of those bandits off, they're going to bring in a nickel corner. And that nickel corner, maybe this young man plays that spot, or who knows, maybe he's good enough to win one of the jobs on the outside. Now he's only 5'10", but Beanie wasn't very tall either. Beanie's only about 5'11", I think, 5'10", 5'11". So if the young man's got good ball skills and has good instincts and good vision and is athletic enough, that can be his height can be overcome. But then some of the other DBs they brought in, like the Crandall kid from Colorado State and some of the others, the Garnes kid from Duquesne, I think they're taller. I think they're 6'1". So they have brought in some length and some size in the secondary as well. So not every defensive back on your team can be 6'1", 6'2". And of course, we have Anthony Wilson coming back to play safety next year. We have Aubrey Burks coming back, and I hear they're going to do some different things with him next year. Not sure what that is, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. Yes, Timothy, another Beanie Bishop potentially. That's what we're hoping to see. Tyler says, I watched the Utah versus Northwestern game, and Joseph played zone safety and made some really good reads on the 2 picks he had that game. Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate that. I did see the highlights of the 2 picks he made, but didn't get to watch enough really to see where he was, where he was playing position-wise. All right. I see a couple. Oh, we got Outlaw College Football, who's also a channel member in here. You see the badge beside his name. It means he's a VIP member. They also get their comments read aloud. It says, all this matters not to be brutally honest. In 2026, the Big Ten and SEC will secede and cherry pick to make a new 48-team league. It still matters, man. I mean, I understand your point, Outlaw, and you might be right, but still it matters. What happens now matters because West Virginia needs to position themselves to be one of those 48 teams, hopefully. If they do that, if that happens, West Virginia needs to try to position themselves to be one of those 48 teams. And if not, they at least need to be the top of the second tier. And the only way you do that is to bring in good talent and keep your AD in the fold, which was the storyline I talked about before. W Football Going Deep says, think Baker has things set the way he wants and is ready to build. Don't think he'll walk away now. Football about to go gold. Women's basketball best ever. A chance to do a proper men's basketball search. Good time to be AD. Yeah, I think so. He seems like the type of guy that likes a challenge. So, I feel like he'll want to start, finish what he's building here. And he did just finish moving his family here. I doubt they're going to want to up and pack. But, hey, you know what? Money talks. You don't know what Missouri will offer him. You don't know how much, they might like their time at Missouri. They might have loved it there. Who knows? They didn't stay very long. But, again, he had an opportunity to be a full-time athletic director, which was his ultimate goal. So he left for all intents and purposes, a better job. The High Patch says there are BYU fans pretending to be Ute fans. Wow. I didn't know that. That rivalry, man, is a whole nother level. I've not seen the vitriol. There's actual vitriol in that rivalry, man. It's crazy. Outlaw College Football says, y'all please jump out and smash the like button and subscribe. Yeah, please do that, guys. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Whether you're watching this live or on the replay, it really helps the algorithm. Hail Billy, another channel member in the house. He says, I don't care about where we are ranked in the extreme preseason polls. Most of it is for betting purposes. Rank us last would be fine with me. There you go, Hail Billy. Hey, again, more motivation for the team, right? Gives them that chip on their shoulder. I got another channel member in the house, Luke Armacost. Thank you for the membership. He says, honestly, I do not see us being worse than last year. I think Wren has this going in the right direction. I guess we will have to hope a bigger name does not come and poach him from us. Agreed, Luke. Like I mentioned earlier, Missouri could be that name, but I doubt it. I think it's highly unlikely that he leaves. But I do think Missouri. I do think he's at the top of Missouri's list, and rightfully so. Wren Baker's a very well-respected AD, and people are seeing the job he's doing at West Virginia. He's going to get a lot of looks. We just got to hope and pray that West Virginia's able to keep him. Y'all please jump out and smash the like button and subscribe. They are free and help our boy Couz keep the lights on. Woo! Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. He also has a channel, Outlaw College Football. Go check him out. Talks about, all of college football. Very entertaining, very knowledgeable. Like to talk a little smack occasionally, but it's all in good fun, and it's very entertaining. And again, he still knows his football, especially when it comes to college football history. The man's like an encyclopedia when it comes to college football history. WVU football going deep says also have the offer to Garnet Hollis, teammate of Joseph, taller and even better rating. If they like each other, means we could get to. That would be awesome. Would definitely be awesome. Don Johnson says sometimes too much stock is put into size. Talent can overcome that. Neil's program is really looking very good. And with Neil hiring Drew as GM, we have great things in our future. Absolutely. Thank you, Luke. He says, become a channel member. It's worth it. Yeah, I'm trying to come up with different things to do for my channel members, Luke. Obviously, the shout outs, you obviously get preferential treatment in the chats, things like that if you're a channel member. I try to give you your value that you pay for. I will release videos early occasionally for my channel members. I will even, if you're a club level member, which is level 2, I will even release those videos occasionally with limited ads where you don't see ads as many ads in the middle of the video. I try to do that occasionally as well, at least during that early period. Trying to come up with some other ideas. I do have contests on occasion too, where channel members get access to. I only allow channel members access to those contests. So if you want to take part in that, obviously, by all means, become a channel member. It's only $2.99 a month or $4.99 a month. Fairly inexpensive if you can afford it. If not, then you can like, share, comment, subscribe. All of that's free and easy. The FSU news. All right. Here's what's going on with FSU. Thank you, Tyler, for the reminder, my man. Basically, an article came out yesterday. I think it was Pete Thamel. No, it wasn't Pete Thamel. Who was it? On 3. He's a guy out on 3. Good grief. I done had a brain fart here. Let me find it. Greg Flugar was talking about it earlier. It is Andy Staples. Andy Staples put out an article basically in a legal document that ACC released, I think Friday, I believe it was. There was like a 1 or 2 lines in there talking about they are giving Florida State the option to buy back their grant of rights. And that's the first time that has ever been mentioned in any of the, there's been like 2 or 3 different legal filings in this case between the ACC and Florida State. This is the first time that anybody knows of where that language has appeared. So they're basically giving Florida State the option to buy their way out of the conference. And what Andy Staples is saying is what that's doing, in his opinion, is open the door for negotiations between the two parties to where Florida State could actually negotiate an exit. And instead of having to go to court and fight this out in court, they just come up with a settlement. They can buy back their grant of rights, and then they can leave the conference without losing those grant of rights. And then obviously they could sell those, then they could go to another conference. And then, of course, they would have to sign that conference's grant of rights more than likely. But still, it could be, if they can get to the Big Ten or SEC, it would be a conference where they can make a lot more money. So I thought that was very interesting. And that's the news today. So that has opened, the way Greg Flugar worded it, the ACC has now blinked. They've blinked and has opened the door now for DM Gaming. Isn't that what a buyout is? Yeah, the buyout and the grant of rights are the 2 different things. The grant of rights is a totally separate thing. They're giving them the option to buy out their grant of right, to buy those grant of rights back. The grant of rights is really the big sticking point here. The buyout itself is only like $120 million. They can do that. That's not an issue. It's the grant of rights that has them tied up, which is where they basically signed all their TV rights over to the ACC through 2036, which means if they leave the league now, they would miss out on over $500 million worth of TV rights money. That's the gist of it. So basically, let's just say theoretically they leave the ACC tomorrow. If they, with that grant of rights being tied to the ACC, every home game Florida State played, the ACC would still get the money for it. So Florida State would get nothing essentially. So that's the grant of rights. The grant of rights just ties the school to the league. The buyout is separate. But it does get a little confusing. It took me a while to understand the difference between between TV rights, grant of rights, buyouts. But there's multiple layers of these things, man. There's a conference buyout that you have to pay to leave the conference. Then there's the TV deal between the conference and the network, and then there's the grant of rights between the school and the conference. It's convoluted. There's a lot to it. It's very complicated. That's why it takes years for these things typically to get worked out. Luke Armacost says, Big 12 better than ACC in basketball and football now. Only thing keeping them relevant is Tobacco Road rivalry. Yeah, and from everything I'm reading, hearing, UNC may eventually get out as well. And if Florida State is able to buy their grant of rights back from the ACC, don't you think other schools are going to try to do the same thing? All that's doing is opening Pandora's box and allowing that to happen. Got our first super chat, guys. Got Outlaw College Football with a $5 super chat. He says, if the Big Ten SEC secede, how close is WVU to the 48-team cutoff? If they do secede, will the remainders recreate a higher profile version of 1AA? Great question, Outlaw. I think, let's see here. Teams that would get in ahead of West Virginia: North Carolina, Virginia, Florida State, Miami, probably. Maybe who else? I don't know if anybody else would get in before West Virginia. Who else am I missing? There's 4. Clemson, obviously. Clemson, I can't leave them out. Maybe Virginia Tech. That'd be West Virginia, Virginia Tech would be close. Maybe Oklahoma State, but again, the Big Ten is big on that AAU crap. I don't think Oklahoma State has it. Well, I know they don't have it either. So, and I don't think the SEC would want another Oklahoma team. What would be the point? I think West Virginia has a legit shot. I think if it goes to, see, what is there now? There's 18, there's 16 and 16, there's 32 teams, 34 teams. If it goes to 12, I think they get in if it goes to 48. If it goes to 48 teams, I think West Virginia, I just don't see West Virginia getting left out if it goes to 48. Now, if it goes to 40, I'm worried. If it goes to 48, I feel good about it. That's where I stand. I think they're probably the sixth or 7th team on that list, if I had to guess. And I could be leaving somebody out, but 2036, who brokered that deal? Well, that would be Mr. What was his name? The commissioner of the ACC back in the day. Again, I'm having another brain fart. It wasn't Jim Phillips. It was a guy before him. He says maybe Tech. He says we're in 48 out of 40. Yeah, I think 48 we're in. 40, I'm nervous. Schools like Texas Tech could potentially get in over us. Maybe. I think it all depends on what the conference is looking for. I think the SEC would take West Virginia over. I think West Virginia would get in the SEC if they take more than 4 teams. I think West Virginia gets in. That's my gut. West Virginia's not getting in the Big Ten. Period. They're not willing to take a school with West Virginia's academic profile. SEC would be, I think. They're not as uppity about that kind of stuff. Yeah, I haven't heard. I think it was Greg Swain who put that on Twitter, the eye patch. I haven't seen that anywhere else yet. But it wouldn't surprise me if most of those schools that are in danger of getting left behind, if all of them haven't reached out to the Big 12 to at least start the conversations, Larry Dumbass of the ACC. Yeah, I can't remember what his name was. Their commissioner at the time. Again, has totally escaped me, but yeah, their commissioner cut a deal with ESPN, and then Jim Phillips unilaterally agreed to let ESPN make the decision whether they want to expand the deal past 2027, because the ESPN could actually decide not to extend the deal past 2027 if they choose not to. And what I think might happen is if Florida State decides to leave, ESPN may decide they don't want that ESPN deal, that ACC deal anymore. and they might not renew it. Then you'd see all hell break loose in the ACC. Veritax, the reason would be, and it's he's asking, why would UVA be in before WVU? Do they even have a fan support? They don't have the fan support, but what they give you is they get the Big Ten or the SEC into a new state in the state of Virginia. That's important to them. New market area, new they get their brand in front of new faces and new TV sets, new households, that kind of thing. And as for the Big Ten's sake, where they're really high on academics, Virginia is one of the top academic schools in the country. You really, really fit the Big Ten. I think UVA is a perfect fit for the Big Ten, actually. I think Virginia Tech's a better fit for the SEC if you're looking at Virginia schools. Virginia would fit better in the Big Ten. And they're a flagship school. They're a state flagship university, which a lot of these conferences like. So if you're looking at strictly fan support, brand, those kind of things, West Virginia probably gets in over Virginia all day. But if you're looking at the other metrics that matter in conference realignment, Virginia may have the edge on West Virginia in some aspects. But fair question, though. John Swafford. Thank you, Scotty B. John Swafford was the commissioner of the ACC when they cut that deal with ESPN. Thank you. And there was Raycom was involved in it. It was a big mess. He says, but from what I hear, Veritax says, but from what I hear, cable networks isn't what matters. What will matter is streaming and WVU Rock. Yes, that is something I do think definitely works in West Virginia's favor, is that TV markets are less important now. Now they're looking more at brand. They're looking at rivalries, what kind of games they can get on TV, those kind of things. And West Virginia moves the needle when it comes to that stuff, more so than, they're probably a top 35 school, if I had to guess, when it comes to brand and name recognition and fan support, those kind of things. They're a top 30, 35 brand in the country. And I think that's one reason I think they would get in the SEC. If the SEC expands beyond 20 teams, I think West Virginia gets in. I really do. Now, if they don't go beyond 20, I don't know that they do. But if they go beyond 20, I feel good about it. Great point, though. Great comment. Luke's going to bring us a hot button topic. Bring it on, man. I'm all for it. What is your opinion on ESPN Plus as far as Big 12 goes? It's hit or miss, man. Good question. It's hit or miss. I got frustrated with them there early in basketball season because they weren't bringing the score up on the screen. That was frustrating, trying to watch a game. You can't even see the score. Some of the commentators are not the greatest. So that, I'm not happy with that. But the overall quality is not bad. The viewing experience is not bad. Is not bad at all. Once they had all the kinks worked out, I'd like to see them use better commentators, and I do think that's getting better than it was in the past. I think the quality is getting better over time, so I'm okay with it. Honestly, I don't love it, but I'm okay with it. Ron, our main rivalry at West Virginia is Pitt. Pitt is number 1. Virginia Tech is number 2. Backyard Brawl was one of the top rivalries in college football, man. That's us and Pitt. Pitt is only about 75 miles from Morgantown, so that's why they call it the Backyard Brawl. So it's a big rivalry. A lot of bragging rights on the line. Outlaw College Football says the AAU and high on academics think with the Big Ten is a complete farce that they use to make themselves feel superior. Hell, Notre Dame got AAU and they aren't even a research school. I know, Outlaw. I think it's a political popularity contest in some regards, man. I think it's a lot of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours type things that go on in that AAU. Notre Dame does very, very little research, and they still got AAU accreditation. That one made no sense to me. There are a lot of other schools that do a lot more research than Notre Dame, and they still didn't get in. So take that for what it's worth. Luke Armacost again says, you are right. Commentators hit and miss. I like that. They let Andrew Caridi call some of the pre-conference games. Yeah, Luke, I did too. I liked it when he was doing games. Gave me some great experience, number one. And it's always great to see Tony's son, carrying the torch, so to speak, for, being just like the old man, carrying on the Caridi tradition. Yeah, Veritac says that he didn't feel like the announcers knew West Virginia's team very well. Yeah, that was the case a lot of times, but it seems like the ones now do a better job. I think they've got guys now who do a better, or people, I should say. There are ladies who do it too. They have announcers now who do a better job of doing their research before the games and things like that. Once in a blue moon, they'll make a comment that makes you want to scratch your head. But other than that, I think they do okay. The last topic I want to touch on was the topic about the group of fives. There was an article came out today. I think it was from Ross Dellinger, basically talking about the group of five trying to survive. He interviewed some group of five coaches, and they commented on, NIL, how they're at such a disadvantage to the P5 schools. The P5 schools are basically taking all their best players because they can pay them more NIL money, and that's hurting the group of five schools. One group of five coach even went on to say, talking about the college football playoff access, he said, look, it's good that they give us access, but they put us, put the group of five schools a 12 seed, make you go on the road and play the 5 seed last year. And this was actually Liberty's coach they were talking to, Jamie Chadwell. And, Liberty would have been the 12 seed last year as a group of five representative. He said, could you really see us going on the road to play Georgia? He said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said, we're done. And, he just talked about how it's such a huge disadvantage for group of five schools that they are now basically, when they get a really good freshman player, so if they get an All-American or an all-conference player who's a freshman, they only plan on keeping them for about 2 years because they know that a Power 5 school is going to take them away. And they're worried about, the separations getting bigger. There was one group of five coach who actually said he thinks they should have their own, the group of five schools should play their own Final Four, have their own playoff, basically, to determine their own champion, what he called a mythical champion. I actually don't think that's a bad idea. However, I do think for the longevity and success of these other schools, that group of five needs to be included because they do get college football playoff money. Not only do they get the college football playoff money, they also get exposure for their school and for their conferences. And, they get commercials run on TV. They get, the exposure from being on the college football playoff selection shows and all that. It's good exposure for their school, for their program, and all that. So, and that was something I hadn't really thought about until I heard Greg Pflugar talk about it. And because I've always thought, why don't the group of five just split off and do their own thing and have their own champion and everything? But then when you talk about the exposure they lose from being lumped in with the bigger name brands, I think that would hurt the school. Not just the athletic department, but the entire school as a whole, because the athletic department and the sports is the front porch to these universities. That's how people learn about them. You know about schools because they're good at football or because they're good at basketball or whatever. It gets them on TV. It gets people talking about them. The next thing you know, students start looking them up online and decide, hey, I want to go to school here, right? That's how it works. And losing that exposure by being part of the quote-unquote big boy club would hurt the schools as a whole. So I actually hope they can figure out a way to keep the G5s part of it. And who knows? Maybe you'll see upsets occasionally. Maybe you'll see a G5 team sneak up and upset a 5 seed power conference team once in a while. It can happen. So let's see where it goes. Sorry, guys. My mouse on my computer is extremely sensitive. But let's go up here. I saw a few comments from some channel members I want to get to here. My favorite basketball commentator, Luke, today, gosh, man, I haven't listened. Jay Billis is pretty good. I don't know, man. I'd have to think about that one. Kevin Harlan's good. I like Kevin Harlan. He's okay. Hillbilly says rivalry, Pitt, VT, or Maryland or Louisville. For West Virginia, definitely Pitt, VT. Absolutely. And for me personally, VT was always a bigger rival because of the proximity with, I live close to VT's campus. So for me, that was always a bigger rivalry. for people in the southern part of the state, Virginia Tech was always a bigger rivalry than Pitt. So, and of course, Pitt's a big rivalry to everybody in the fan base. So those two would be at the top. I never really considered Maryland a rivalry. The rivalry has started to die down a little bit as I was coming up and getting older and really getting into college football. The rivalry just didn't have the same pizzazz as it did years ago. And I really liked the rivalry West Virginia had with Louisville, especially in basketball, that they had when they were in the Big East together. I thought that was pretty cool. And then it kind of, obviously with the whole conference realignment thing getting faded, but I think that could be a rivalry that could get rejuvenated if Louisville ever found themselves in the Big 12. It'd be cool to see. Outlaw of College Football says, off topic, The Rock will turn on Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes will finally finish the story. That's what a lot of people are talking about, Outlaw, that they're thinking The Rock this whole heel turn might be a ruse to turn on Roman and then lead to a Roman Rock WrestleMania 41 match. That's what a lot of people think is happening here that they're setting up for. It'll be interesting to see how it turns out. Luke says, or that unhinged Hornets commentator. Yeah, I don't watch the Hornets, man, so I couldn't tell you on that one. Hellbilly says he's more interested in Bailey versus Io. That's an interesting storyline, too. Tyler Cobb says, I don't think G5 should even have an auto bid. It's literally a bye week for their opponent in the playoff, and Liberty versus Oregon proved that. Yes, but, man, if you look back through time, maybe it's different, but when you look back in the BCS days, I mean, we saw Boise State knock off Oklahoma. We saw Alabama, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't Boise State beat Alabama one time or something like that in a BCS game? So, we saw TCU win a BCS game, I think, over Wisconsin once before they were a power, and this was before they were a Power 5 school. It was when they were still in the Mountain West, I believe. So we've seen Group of 5 teams knock off Power 5 teams in the past. I'll be honest with you. I don't think Liberty should have gotten that spot. Liberty didn't beat anybody. They were undefeated, but they hadn't beat anybody. I thought SMU should have gotten that spot, to be honest. I thought SMU was a better football team, and SMU would have played a better game against Oregon than what Liberty did, in my opinion. Oregon probably still would have won the game, but SMU would have been more competitive. So I respectfully disagree with you on that one, Tyler. So Hellbilly says Sunbelt is the best G5 to watch. Well, I'm going to be watching a lot more Sunbelt football because my daughter is going to be going to Marshall next year. And I will likely be attending some games, watching a lot more Marshall football. So I'm probably going to get to learn a lot more about Sunbelt football next year. Outlaw says, if y'all want Couz to answer your question, click on the money dollar sign at the bottom right. It will highlight your comment and push it to the top. Too many questions for him to get to. Thank you, Outlaw. I don't like to feel like I'm begging people for money, so I wouldn't want to say anything. Delta says opinions on Josh Allert. I like Josh. I really wanted it to work out for him, man. I really like him as a person. I think he's doing everything in his power to make this work with the crap that he's been dealt. He's been dealt a terrible hand. He's tried to make the best of it. I'm not sure any coach could have been successful with what he's had to deal with. But at the same time, I think they have to move on, man. I mean, the season is so bad. I think you just have to move on, start from scratch, start from the ground up, and just start over. That's what I think you need to do here. I hate it. And I would love to see Josh stay on staff. Whatever coach they bring in, maybe Josh gets to stay. I don't know. I hope so. But whatever happens, I think Josh has a bright future in coaching. And I just think that you got to move on after this year, man. That you need to have a clean slate, start over. It has 2, 5, 10, etc. options. Talking about the super chats there. Utah beat Alabama. That was Utah. That's right. Thank you, Outlaw. When Utah was still in the Mountain West or whatever conference they were in, they beat Alabama. Thank you. And that's when Urban Meyer was our coach, I believe. And Friction Hitch also put that in there as well. Thank you, Friction Hitch. Is Coach Huggins, Jeff Burton asks, is Coach Huggins going to beat Ohio State? I don't think so. I do think Coach Huggins is going to coach again. And by the way, there was a story coming out today. It's a rumor, but somebody posted on Twitter today that a large donor to WVU said he's going to do everything in his power to see that Bob Huggins gets the job back. But Gordon Gee has already said plainly, flat out, no, never. He's not coming back. So I don't know why people keep wasting their time. I just spend your money and resources and energy somewhere else because he's not coming back. Good for her. Oh, yeah, talking about my daughter going to Marshall. Yeah, we're proud of her, man. See, make sure I don't have any super chats. Outlaw says he ain't above asking. Yeah, I had somebody comment the other day that they quit watching my video when I started begging. So I don't want to feel like I'm begging for money. People know. I think people have been doing. Most people on here have watched enough super chats or have watched enough live streams. They know how it works. So if they want to do it, they'll do it. That's how I look at it. But for those who don't know, you can donate to my show by clicking the $ near the chat box. When you click the $, it gives you an option to make a small donation, and it highlights your comment. Make sure I read it. And when there's over 100 people in here, there's no way for me to read every comment. So if it highlights it for me, I'll see it and comment on it. And it's a way you can easily support my channel. Luke says that person. Oh, well, trust me, there's a lot of those on here, man. You never forget. You guys will not believe some of the comments I see or we get. I say me. It's anybody who does this. It used to bother me, but I've done it long enough now that I've developed a thicker skin and I just blow it off. But this person got on here the other day and said they wouldn't subscribe to my channel because of the yellow bar going across the bottom of my screen, the scrolling on the bottom. I'm like, they said it was distracting. I'm like, if that distracts you, you got ADD. I think you need to go get medical attention. I didn't tell them that, but that's what I was thinking. Jean Ann McGuire, good question here. Says, can Josh be fairly evaluated after all the cluster of events that have happened? He hasn't had a full roster. Agreed, Jean Ann. He has had a full roster for the past few games. And still, I mean, they've won 8 games. I mean, it's not like the team's not talented. It'd be different if they didn't have a lot of talent, but they do. And I just don't think – I don't think I don't know. And it's not even – I don't think it's a full-on evaluation. I mean, it's just one of those things. I think it's best for the program to start over. I think they need to wipe their hands of anything of Bob Huggins. I love Huggins, and I know Big Dan T, who just jumped in with a super chat. I know he loves Huggins, and I know he doesn't think Huggins should have been fired. But I think at this point, Bob Huggins had already started to regress anyway in his career. He was not doing that good. West Virginia had finished near the bottom of the conference multiple times over the last 5 years and barely got in the tournament last year. So he wasn't really setting the world on fire in the first place. Now, everybody was excited because of this, class he had, the transfer class he was bringing in, along with the guys that were supposed to stay. And they could have had a really good team. That's what everybody was so upset about. But at the end of the day, I think you just need to wipe the slate clean and move on from anything. Again, I have no issue with guys staying on as assistants, but not as a head coach. I don't think you need to have anybody connected with Bob Huggins as a head coach of the program. I think you need to start over, bring in some young blood. Dan T with the $99.99 donation. Thank you for the donation, Big Dan T. He didn't even leave a chat. I know Big Dan T's been one of my big supporters here on the channel from the beginning. Been one of my super donors here, also a channel member. Thank you, Big Dan T, for all your support. Yes, he is 70. That's another point. He doesn't have that many years left to coach anyway. Bring in a young coach with new ideas that can relate to the players, that players want to play for, that can win basketball games. That's what I want. And there's a lot of those out there, and Rembecker will find the right guy. Huggins absolutely had to be fired. Yeah, I mean, he had too many chances, man. Too many chances. You can't – when you're already in trouble and you're already on probation, so to speak, you can't get in your car, or you don't need to do it anyway, but you can't get behind the wheel of a company vehicle with a 0.29 blood alcohol content. You can't do it. Gina McGuire says even Hugs teams had to get half a year to get them to play team ball, especially with the transfer portal. Yes, agreed. It was tough. It can be done. I'm not saying G5 can't compete, but more often than not, it's a free win for the 5 seed. I'm just saying the G5 should have to be ranked top 12 to make playoff. Tyler, I respect your opinion, man. Like I said, I respectfully disagree with you, but I do respect your opinion, and that is definitely a conversation that it's going to be tomorrow. They're supposed to vote tomorrow. The College Football Playoff Committee is supposed to vote on the new format tomorrow, so we will see. And actually, I think it's the Board of Managers that are voting tomorrow, which is the highest level of governorship over the CFP. It's the presidents and chancellors that are that have final say are going to be voting, and then the commissioners meet the next day. Usually it's the opposite. They're doing it backwards this time. So hopefully Kirk Schultz from Washington State gets something or gets on board, votes, and gets this thing moving so we can see a 12-team playoff in 2024 and beyond. We want to see it beyond 2024. Don, exactly the way I feel. I love Huggy too, man. He's one of my favorite Mountaineers of all time, if not my favorite Mountaineer of all time. But we need a fresh start. There is not one man bigger than the program ever, and I'll say that to the day I go to my grave. I don't root for. It doesn't say Bob Huggins across the jersey. It says West Virginia across the jersey. And they've got to do what's best for West Virginia. But anyway, well, guys, look, I appreciate everybody hopping in here. David Frame hops in. Thank you, David. Arizona's not the best football team in the Big 12. That's ridiculous. They're going to probably not even win 70% of their games. Yeah, well, that's what the guy from College Football Network had. He thought they were. So take it up with him, man. I thought it was ridiculous. I do have Arizona in the top half of the league and maybe even the top 4 or 5 teams, but I don't have them at number 1. Utah's number 1 for me. I know the eye patch loves to hear that. I've got Utah 1. Probably I'll do my team by team breakdown later in the year, probably in the summer after I get my Field Steel magazine. But Utah, probably either Oklahoma State or Kansas State. I probably have it number 2 somewhere. But we'll see. I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to judge until we get through, the summer and the transfer portal stuff's over with. David Frame says Huggy Bear may be the bigger than the program. Yeah, but he's not supposed to be. That's a problem. If you have one guy who's bigger than the program, that's a problem, in my opinion. That means he carries way too much weight, and it can cause problems to your program. But you may not be wrong. But we'll find out. The eye patch says Tyler Cobb Saban was crying 2 years ago when Alabama got left out. TCU 2. Oh, I meant to click on this one, Luke, too. He says, on the brighter side, go West Virginia women on Wednesday. They've got a big one against K-State. West Virginia women's basketball team is killing it. They're 13-3, I believe. Luke, correct me if I'm wrong on that record. Second place in the Big 12. Play a very fun style of basketball. They press from opening tip to the last buzzer. Very, very fun to watch. J.J. Quinterly's averaging about 19 a game. Very fun player to watch. They have a point guard named Jordan Harrison who can flat out handle the basketball as good as any girl I've ever seen play. Any woman, I should say. She's really good. They have a lot of other good players too. I don't want to leave any of them out, but a lot of talented young ladies on that team. They're fun to watch. Outlaw says, the one time the G5 made the playoffs in Cincy, they got beat down by Alabama. Yeah, but Cincy was just as competitive in that game as a lot of other teams were in the playoffs. I mean, how many teams have we seen get beat down in the playoffs over the years? There's always at least one. Cincy competed with Alabama just as well as a lot of other teams. Notre Dame, what year was it? Notre Dame got in and got absolutely pounded. They competed better than Notre Dame did. I mean, so I don't have an issue with them being in. Guys, scroll along the bottom of my screen if you're wondering. There's a media outlet called West Virginia Sports Now. Most West Virginia fans are familiar with Ethan Bach and Mike Oste and their team. They have partnered with me here at Couz's Corner. They have a special subscription service they just started this year called The Holler. It gets you inside information, stuff that's not available to the public, that's only available to their subscribers, paid subscribers. Well, if you put Couz, if you go to their website and you sign up for The Holler for that service, and you use the promo code Couz at checkout, you'll get a 40% discount on a 1 year membership. Instead of $34 for a 1 year subscription to The Holler, you get it for $21. But you have to use promo code Couz to get that. I'm privileged to be working with those guys over there. Be partnering with them for this. And guys, if you're a channel member at Couz's Corner and you do this, let me know. Send me a screenshot of your membership, and I'll throw you a few more bucks in as a rebate. I'll throw you a $3 rebate on top of that to give you a little bit better discount. Maybe that'll entice some of you guys to join. But anyway, I'm going to hop off here. It's been a little bit over an hour. Appreciate you jumping on here for Couz's Corner Happy Hour. I'm going to try to start doing these every week. Next week, I think the West Virginia men play on Monday night, so I might do it a different night. But keep your eyes peeled. I'm going to try to start doing one live stream a week. They will typically be on Mondays. May have to move them around a little bit occasionally, but it'll typically be Mondays or Tuesdays most of the time. But don't forget to tune in to my weekly live stream. Appreciate you all tuning in. Thanks for all your support. Have a top shelf day in Q Country Roads.